Stories about China that we get on the continent are distorted, twisted, where you can't even know and recognize this is the China they are talking about when you come here. The China you know out there is very different from the China that exists here. Again, the tide of public opinion needs to shift. Shift to the truth. And the truth is on the side of China.
大家好，今天这期视频给大家带来的是一场关于中国、非洲与全球舆论格局的深度访谈。参与这场讨论的是两位非洲记者，他们在访谈中提出了一个引发广泛争议的问题：为什么很多非洲民众对中国的认知与他们亲眼看到的中国存在巨大差距？他们指出，非洲长期以来获取国际信息的渠道主要来自各大西方媒体，而这些媒体塑造出的中国形象与真实的中国发展存在明显不同。这位非洲记者认为，全球舆论长期由西方国家掌握，西方媒体通过自身叙事影响世界对中国的看法。那么，这种对中国的负面报道背后，究竟只是媒体观点的差异，还是一场更深层次的国际竞争？当一个国家在经济、科技和产业领域不断崛起，无法在实力上遏制对手时，是否就会转向另一场没有硝烟的舆论战？更值得关注的是，西方不仅通过媒体影响外界对中国发展的认知，甚至试图利用自身掌握的话语权重新定义国际问题。在他们看来，中国的发展被不断质疑和否定，而围绕台湾、香港等涉及中国主权的问题，也被包装成所谓扩张帝国主义的叙事。但问题是，一个国家维护自身领土完整，为什么会被描述成威胁？一个拥有数百年历史纠葛的问题，又怎能被简单地定义成单方面的侵略？那么，西方媒体塑造的中国形象究竟有多少是真实的？这场舆论竞争，西方赢了吗？让我们一起走进这场访谈。
The global communication is dominated by Western capitals. The media is dominated by Western transnational corporations and the state agencies. That's the main source of information for Africa. It's the main source of information for our people on the continent about China. Seldom do we get direct information from China. Yes, the CGTV and a few other channels, but their capacity still does not match the myriad of platforms the West has created to influence public opinion in Africa. Stories about China that we get on the continent are distorted, twisted, where you can't even know and recognize this is the China they are talking about when you come here. The China you know out there is very different from the China that exists here. Our people are being bombarded with propaganda every day to make them hate China. We are being taught to hate China, to be suspicious of China, to ridicule China. That has to change. They tell their story. They don't tell the Chinese story. They don't tell our story. When they talk about China, they talk about China in the way they want China to be portrayed. When they talk about Africa, they will talk about Africa in the way they want Africa to be portrayed. We have to tell our story. We need to strengthen our direct communication. We need to engage with each other directly. We need to build communication channels that are not distorted by them.
It's overwhelming. If you're an average West African, your source about international news is coming either from the BBC, CNN, or France 24. Okay. Those are your main information sources. Those are the sources that are then picked up by local broadcasters, local print media, and regurgitated. We don't have the media resources to have our own reporters in China or anywhere else in the world. So the broadcasts of these people become the basis for information and therefore the basis for discussion. I mean, it's been very, very clear this year, for example, because of the Russian operation in Ukraine, that there's a total one-sided production. As I've said, if you listen to Western media, you think that Russian soldiers are eating Ukrainian babies or something. You know it's utterly distorted. You feel uncomfortable with it. But where's the alternative? We're affected by the broadcasters sponsored by the foreign affairs establishments in the West or by private capital. There's a deliberate strategy to dominate the media space throughout the world, but particularly in Africa, and it's working. It is working. It would be a mistake for China to think that we are not the underdog in this battle. We are losing the communication war, the ideological war. Because our generation, we saw it, we lived it. We know China was there fighting. We know China was there with our leaders, thinking through economic planning, thinking through options. But if you were born 30 years ago, you don't necessarily have that information. So what happens in the media now is important, because it's only through mass media, social and traditional, that you're going to be able to shape the way Africans see the world. And clearly, things are coming to a head. And so it's important that as we reach the edge, there's clarity amongst the masses about what the issues are and therefore where we stand. It's important that the West is not able to portray, for example, the Taiwan issue as Chinese imperialism. Okay, that's very, very important. If the US is able to militarize South Korea, is able to militarize Taipei and so on, it's the same as building bases across Africa. They are being built for the purpose of surrounding, containing, and controlling the outcomes in the near and long-term future. Africans instinctively understand that this is our land. Why are you coming from God knows how many thousands of miles away to come and dictate to us how we treat our own territory? We see that happening to ourselves, so we understand what is happening in relation to China and Taiwan and so on. People don't actually know what the issues are. People don't even understand the history of Hong Kong. Again, our generation, we were there, we saw it happening. But younger people don't necessarily understand that Hong Kong is part of China. It's like, Britain has given Hong Kong to China. How did Britain come to acquire Hong Kong? Was this not part of the centre of humiliation? It was simply a question of relative power and military might, and China had to make concessions. But that has to be put into stories. It has to be explained. So there's a greater responsibility on China to make that input.
When you are weak, you strengthen yourself or yourselves by uniting, by working together, by cooperating. There is need for the progressive Africa to cooperate with the Chinese communication entities so that our voice is heard, our story is heard, so that we are able to tell our own story in a more compelling way. We need to cooperate to strengthen ourselves as a matter of urgency. If we don't, even things that are straightforward, like the issue of Taiwan, will be distorted. Today, many people do not realize, especially in Africa, that the United States recognized on more than one or two occasions the fact that Taiwan is part of China. Today, they are pretending and behaving as if they never gave that recognition. And if they gave that recognition, they recognize Taiwan as part of China. Why are they entering Chinese territory and starting to arm part of China? starting even to proclaim intentions of defending part of China. Somebody recognizes that this room is part of your house. But the same person who has recognized that this part of the house, this room is part of your house, does not want you to enter that room that is part of your house. You should never go and do anything in a room that is part of your house, which they have recognized as part of your house. And they want to move in and dictate what is done in your house. Where is the respect for the territorial integrity of China? Where is the respect and recognition of the sovereignty of China? We need to improve our communication if we have to be successful in mobilizing our people, in educating our people, in organizing our people to wage the battles that are needed, that are necessary for their progress and for the peace of the world.
People are busy struggling for survival. People are busy trying to find the next meal. They won't know about these things unless the media conveys them. And if we allow continued dominance of the media,
again, the tide of public opinion needs to shift. Shift to the truth. And the truth is on the side of China, is on our side. One television channel, one radio station, one newspaper is not enough.
yeah.
We need a multiple of voices.
You're talking about almost 3 billion people, a conversation between 3 billion people. You need more channels, more instruments for doing that. That's important because, again, the propaganda has been such that there are a lot of people who have the perception that China is just one monolith. People don't know that there are different ethnic.
No, the
people need to know.
The diversity that is in this country in all areas of human endeavor is amazing.
Yeah.
This is a true sense of unity in diversity. And that diversity entails a very high level of democracy.
Necessarily.
There is very high levels of democracy in China. But if you tell people in the West that China is a democratic society, they will not believe it because they see democracy in their own way.
Yep.
Democracy where those with money dominate. What is done is what they want. The democracy in China is not a democracy where those with money dominate. It's a democracy where the people dominate. The people and their interests dominate. In a truly peaceful world, democracy takes many forms of expression. And what you are seeing in China is an expression of democracy in the Chinese way. They did not just drop from nowhere. They have a long history. And you cannot impose another culture on them. Yes, we appreciate that cultures need to exchange. We need to learn from each other. But also we have to appreciate where totally different cultures meet if we have to live in a peaceful world.
Yeah.
Western culture is not the only culture. Western values are not the only values. What are the Western values? Greedy, individualism, competition, consumerism, and broad consumerism. These are the Western values on which capitalism is built. The most important of those values is individualism. These are the three values support individualism. What are the values of the Chinese society? Chinese culture is built on equity. It's built on humility. It's built on honesty. It's built on solidarity, with the most important value being equity. All these other values of honesty, solidarity, humility go to support the value of equity. How does equity relate to the value of individualism. A society that is based on individualism has problems dealing with a society based on equity. But it doesn't mean we cannot exist in the same world. We have to manage our differences. This is the reality we have to face. This is the reality young people have to understand. This is the world we live in, and we cannot live on another world. We have to deal with the contradictions of this world we live in.
回顾这场访谈，最值得关注的地方，不只是关于中国形象的问题，更是一场围绕全球话语权展开的较量。非洲记者提出，很多非洲民众对于中国的认知，并不是来自亲身了解，而是长期依赖西方媒体塑造的信息。他们认为，西方媒体掌握了全球传播资源，通过自己的叙事方式影响着世界对中国、对非洲以及国际事务的判断。但问题在于，当媒体带有立场，当信息被选择性呈现，普通民众还能看到真正完整的事实吗？一个被反复强调的观点是，西方国家一直宣称自己代表民主、自由和开放，但如果真的尊重事实，又为什么要让大量民众只接触到单一声音？为什么很多人对中国的印象停留在媒体描述中，而不是现实中的中国？从中国的发展，到非洲与中国的合作，再到台湾问题、香港历史以及中西方价值观差异，这场访谈试图揭示一个现实：国际竞争不仅发生在经济、科技和军事领域，也发生在信息和舆论领域。更重要的是，一个国家是否值得信任，不应该由某些媒体提前定义，而应该让事实本身说话。一个不断发展、推动基础设施建设、扩大国际合作的中国，值得被世界客观看待。选择站在事实的一边，就是站在真相的一边，而了解真实中国，也是打破偏见的第一步。那么，全球话语权到底应该由谁掌握？未来，中国是否能够改变国际传播格局，让更多人看到一个更加真实的中国？欢迎大家在评论区留下你的看法。